with Deshaun Watson, we have to address the news as it comes to us. We have to cover the developments as they emerge. And finally, after a week of relative silence from Deshaun Watson, we had this statement from him last Tuesday night on social media that started all of this for me. I didn't know anything about any lawsuit until Deshaun Watson decided to take the initiative. And then, Charean, nothing for a week. And as we established, before we get to the statement from Rusty Hardin, before we get to that, it's become a given that they are way behind in the battle for a verdict in the court of public opinion, almost to the point where with 14 lawsuits and at least 10 more to come, I don't know that they can make up the gap. Before we get into what was said today, I feel like it's already over in the court of public opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you, Mike. They waited way too long, and Deshaun Watson's initial statement was based on one case, and it looked like, okay, this thing's going to go away. And I don't know how many days in a row we've talked about this now, I guess 7 or 8 or whatever we're going on now. But Tony Buzbee has used the court of public opinion in his best way. Now, you could call him a carnival barker, you can call him media savvy, whatever you want him to do. But I think it was very orchestrated that these cases have come out almost one by one and have remained at the forefront of our show, other shows, Houston media, everywhere else. Everyone's talking about this, Mike, and they're going to continue to talk about this. And the camp of Deshaun Watson is just now talking about it. It's too late already, in my opinion.
Now, with that as the background, we finally have the response that was promised late last week by noted attorney Rusty Hardin, who, as Charean mentioned yesterday, has been involved in the representation of many high-profile individuals in and out of Houston. Here's the statement that was released today, and I'm going to go ahead and read all of it to be fair to the story. I want to emphasize at the outset that we and Deshaun recognize that sexual assault and harassment are not only unlawful, but morally wrong. It takes courage for women to come forward to report being mistreated, particularly when they attach their names to a lawsuit. We do not take these allegations lightly. However, fairness to the accused is equally as important. Opposing counsel has orchestrated a circus-like atmosphere by using social media to publicize 14 Jane Doe lawsuits during the past 7 days in a manner calculated to inflame the public and malign Deshaun's otherwise sterling reputation. In addition, the tactic of refusing our requests to confidentially provide the names of the plaintiffs so we can fully investigate their claims makes uncovering the truth extremely difficult. Anonymity is often necessary as a shield for victims, but opposing counsel has used it as a sword to publicly humiliate Deshaun before the truth-seeking process can even begin. I believe that any allegation that Deshaun forced a woman to commit a sexual act is completely false. And in the one case in which we've been able to identify a plaintiff, we have strong evidence showing the allegation is false. In January of this year, a woman attempted to blackmail Deshaun by demanding $30,000 in exchange for her indefinite silence about what she stated was a consensual encounter. It is our belief this woman is the plaintiff in cause number 2021-15613. This calls into question the legitimacy of the other cases as well. We have received numerous unsolicited comments in the past week from many licensed massage therapists who have worked with Deshaun in recent years. These women describe him as a gentleman and a model client who never engaged in inappropriate conduct. Indeed, before these salacious claims, everyone who associated with Deshaun described him as an outstanding, respectful, and compassionate man. Again, we are taking these allegations very seriously, and we ask only that people not rush to judgment, that people not be unduly influenced by opposing counsel's tactics, and that they let fundamental fairness to both sides rule the day. Thank you for your patience and understanding. There is a declaration of Brian Burnley that I will not read, but basically it corroborates the idea that one of these plaintiffs allegedly was involved in some sort of what they characterize as blackmail scheme based upon consensual acts. Now, look, Charean, there's a lot there, but the frontline argument seems to be, until you tell us who these people are, we can't even begin to respond to these claims. Now, my reaction to that is, you know who gave you massages over the course of the last year, or at least you should. If there's so many you lost track of them, that's a problem in and of itself. But I don't know how much you need to know exactly who the people are to say, I didn't do anything wrong. You either did or you didn't. The names don't matter. You either conducted yourself appropriately with the people who gave you massages or you didn't. I understand there's frustration in that they can't delve into who these people are and what their motivations may be. They'll get that opportunity in time. But this is a tough sell for me, the idea that they exercise their right to proceed under a pseudonym somehow short circuits this entire process and makes it impossible for Deshaun to show that he's innocent in the court of public opinion. That may be the best they have at this point. And again, it's different from a court of law, but the best that they can come up with in a situation like this, it's possible they're just in checkmate. It's from the perspective of the court of public opinion. At this stage, without the opportunity to work up the cases and get verdicts or get cases dismissed or whatever, it's possible that they have deliberately and intentionally been backed into a corner and there's nothing they can do about it for now.
I have so many questions, the more questions now than obviously there are answers, but this is either the biggest character assassination in sports history or Deshaun Watson is indeed a serial predator, as one of the lawsuits states, Mike. You know, a lot of these lawsuits, not all of them, but a lot of them, correct me if I'm wrong, state specifics of where it took place, the date it took place, the time it took place. They should be easy, right, to come back. If Deshaun Watson wasn't there, if he didn't participate, wouldn't it be easy to come back and say he wasn't in Atlanta on this date? Here's where he was. And so I guess my problem with all this is they didn't come out and say he didn't have any of these massages. He wasn't there at these times that they specify. It's just you're not giving us the names of the people. That's my problem, I guess, to start with on this statement, Mike.
Well, and you're right, Charean. That's an excellent point. The idea that you shouldn't need the names in order to construct who it was and what day it was. Now, I don't know what kind of records a professional athlete keeps as to who massaged him when. I doubt that he has a spreadsheet, but there would have to be a way through the application of some diligence to begin to identify at least one or two. And the idea that because they think they have a smoking gun as to one calls into question the legitimacy of the other cases, I don't buy that with 14. If there was 3 or 2 or maybe even as many as 4, okay, if you can show that 1 is patently false and fabricated and an attempted blackmail, then that casts a cloud over the other cases. When you get to 14 and you're on your way to 24, just because you may have a silver bullet that takes out 1, or what you think is a silver bullet that takes out 1, you still got 23 others. And I doubt that people are going to react favorably to the notion that this calls into question the legitimacy of the other cases as well. All it does is knocks out 1, potentially knocks out 1. You still got 13 in court and 23 more total that you're going to have to contend with.
Here's another thing in the statement, Mike. He makes the point in there of saying, we have received numerous unsolicited comments in the past week from many licensed massage therapists. I think that's important. It's my guess. I don't know this. I would guess many of these who were contacted over Instagram are unlicensed. And that would be my question. Why are you going to unlicensed massage therapists? As I said yesterday, Mike, every athlete that I know that I have been in professional football players, track athletes, almost all of them, they have regular massages. This is not unusual to have a regular massage, but almost all of them have a regular masseuse that they use. And it is a licensed masseuse. And a lot of times it is through the team. And a lot of times it is male. And I had never thought of it being a male masseuse and for the reasons why. And now it's becoming more clear to me why they would choose to do that. But nonetheless, that point just, when I read that statement, that point just came over to me that many of these are probably unlicensed. So why are you going to unlicensed masseuses who are not sports massage therapists? That's a huge question for me.
This dovetails with the information that was leaked to TMZ over the weekend that Deshaun somehow didn't have access to his usual massage therapist because of the pandemic. So he was using other avenues to get his massages. I still don't completely understand the idea that licensed. I don't know enough about the industry to know what licensed massage therapists were and weren't allowed to do in the early days of the pandemic. But the notion that I can't get a massage from my regular person, so I've got this revolving door of Instagram massage therapists, that struck a lot of people, I would say, as odd over the weekend. And you may be onto something here, that there are licensed massage therapists he has used. What is he doing with this constant stream of unlicensed massage therapists that he's finding on Instagram? And that's why when I take a step back and I try to look at this as somebody who would just be receiving this information, let's say it was in a sport that I don't cover or pay any attention to or know any of the people involved and have no impressions as to the character of the individuals going in. Because as I've said multiple times, a week ago, if I'd have made a list of the people that I thought were least likely to be accused of something like this, Deshaun Watson would have been near the top of it. But when I take a step back and I look at this from that perspective, and I try to be completely ignorant to the context and the people, I'd say that it just smells like he thought he was buying something more than massages by getting these massages via Instagram. And he knew what he was looking for, and some of them were okay with it, and some of them weren't okay with it. And I don't know how many out there were okay with it, but it looks like he's identified potentially one instance where someone was okay with it and has now pivoted to not being okay with it. But even if that's what's gone on, the chances of going 14 for 14 or 24 for 24 with someone who was okay with it and now is saying they're not okay with it, that's too many. That's like flip. That's even harder than flipping a coin 24 times and having it show up heads. It's slimmer than that. So there's many things about this. And Charean, I think your instincts are right. And I'm trying to explain it in a way that will be understandable to a layperson as it relates to the legal system. But just the idea that there could be this many claims where either it's fabricated or it was okay at the time and now it's not. See, that's what they're trying to set up as it relates to at least one of these plaintiffs. Not that it's made up, but something happened and it was fine, but now there's a profit motive and it's not fine. I'd be astounded if there's an ability in court to prove that and make that stick to 24 different people, if ultimately there are 24 lawsuits, Charean.
Yeah, Mike, just where there's smoke, there's fire usually, right? And we've seen this with other big high profile people, some of them in sports and some of them not in sports, that when these cases just start getting up into the numbers that we've seen, I just don't know how many of them are made up. It's too, at some point it becomes too many. And like you said, I don't know if that's one or two or three or five, but I think when you get in the numbers we're talking about now, it's just hard to believe that something didn't happen there. And if you're Deshaun Watson, again, you know where you were and where you weren't. You know if you had these massages or didn't have these massages. And there are some text messages that seem to indicate that he had these massages. But, you've got to have more than that. You've got to have more proof that this didn't happen. And I don't know that there is going to be that smoking gun that we keep thinking that maybe Rusty Hardin's going to come up with. So I think he's backed into a corner now, Mike. And I don't like Deshaun Watson's chances of getting out of this unscathed, whether that's just publicity-wise in the court of public opinion, which I think he's already lost that, or elsewhere. But you're the lawyer, so bring this forward. Like, where do we go from here? What is the Houston DA, who they have not talked about this, where does this go? Is this what Tony Busby is looking for, is for the DA to open an investigation? Is that where they're hoping this goes?
I think that that's part of the effort to win in the court of public opinion, because, Charean, I think it will be very difficult to convince a prosecutor to file criminal charges, to pursue an indictment of Deshaun Watson because of the very high standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. You've got the word of Deshaun Watson versus the word of the individuals. Now, maybe you could put Deshaun Watson in a position where in front of a criminal jury, he has to waive his right against self-incrimination and testify because the evidence as developed from the individual who would testify and then be subject to rigorous cross-examination in open court. But if that person tells a story in any one of these 14 cases, then you may have proof beyond a reasonable doubt. But prosecutors don't like to pursue charges that they think they can't make stick. They want to win. And because of that, they typically will only go forward if they believe they've got the case pinned down. They don't want to create a headline in the newspaper or elsewhere that they swung and they missed. And it's very easy to create reasonable doubt. And Rusty Hardin surely is skilled at doing that. So I think this is just about bolstering the public perception of these cases, and Charean also answering the question. It's an unfair and inappropriate question, but it gets asked all the time. Why didn't you go to the police? Why didn't these people go straight to the local precinct? Why did they wait so long? Why are they filing a lawsuit and looking for money instead of seeking justice in the criminal process? This is Tony Buzbee's way of taking all those cases and piling them into one and saying they all are seeking justice in any form they can get it. I think that's part of it too. But as a practical matter, I don't think it's going to be a matter of prosecution. I think these cases are going to go forward. And there is a process that is put into place in every civil case. And I don't know how quickly or slowly things move in Harris County, Texas, but the normal process is you have 30 days to respond to the complaint with an answer or a motion to dismiss. And then you work your way through the early stages of the litigation. At some point, there will be sworn testimony taken of the key individuals involved. There's a calendar set up for when the case goes to trial. There's other documents that are exchanged. And, usually the case is set for trial within 12 to 15 months after you have your scheduling conference with the judge. So usually it's an 18-month proposition. Well, that's a full football season and then some for these 14 cases. So it's going to take a while for this to resolve. The NFL at some point may decide we can't let Deshaun Watson play while these cases are pending. These can't be something that is mentioned on every broadcast of every Texans game. We can't have this distraction. We can't have this tarnish of the shield. We're going to put him on the commissioner exempt list. That I think is possible, and it becomes more likely with more and more cases filed. But Deshaun has rights. The individuals have rights, and those rights will collide, but also play out in court, unless he settles it. Now, he could have settled it before any cases were filed, and maybe we never would have even known about it. Guilty or innocent, that would have been a path he could have followed. And he still could settle these cases now and make it all go away now and make the 14 plaintiffs plus the 10 others satisfied with whatever they receive as evidence of the justice that they're getting through their filing of a lawsuit. And that would end it all very quickly. But then the question is, what would the NFL do under the personal conduct policy if there's a settlement of all of these cases right now? So in theory, Deshaun Watson could wake up any day between now and the issuance of verdicts in these cases and say, I want this to end. Let's negotiate the best settlement we can and move on. So it could end quickly at any time. But there's been nothing to indicate so far that he's going to do anything other than dig in with the same zeal that he's dug in against the Texans in seeking a trade.
And we do have breaking news, Mike. A 15th suit was just filed. John McClain just texted me. We have now 15. So there's an additional case that goes into this, that if he wants to settle, he's going to have to settle the 15th lawsuit, Mike. And that's just going to be difficult to do, you would think, to settle that many with that many women.
Yeah, and we expect 9 more. Look, if there are 24 people who have spoken to Tony Buzbee and they're vetting these cases and they're all similar facts, they're going to end up in the same spot with the filing of a lawsuit. Unless Tony Buzbee comes to the conclusion that one of these individuals is just trying to climb on board without any proof whatsoever that she even met Deshaun Watson. And that hasn't been an argument made. There's been no suggestion that I didn't get 14 massages from different people or 24 from different people. None of that. I mean, the question is, what can be proven ultimately in court as to what he did or didn't do? What will a jury believe? And that's all separate and apart from the court of public opinion. And look, I haven't had a significant amount of time to really digest what was tendered today. But what was tendered today calls into question 1 of 24. And it calls into question generally the practice of proceeding with a pseudonym, which these individuals have the right to do. That's it. It doesn't go nearly as far as I think they hope that it will.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.